The first time I heard someone knocking on the passenger side window of my patrol truck at 2:17 inches the morning, I nearly opened the door to help them, until I realized I was parked in the middle of 20 miles of empty Nebraska prairie, with no houses, no vehicles, and nobody visible in any direction. You're listening to True Haunting Log, where we share real haunted incidents from real people around the globe. And if you've experienced something you can't explain, send your story to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. Story 1. The Road Past the Salt Witch's Cabin. This happened while I worked as a county deputy in western Nebraska, covering long stretches of rural highway and isolated farm roads that most people only see on maps. The area was mostly ranch land, open prairie, abandoned homesteads, and roads so empty you could drive half an hour without passing another vehicle. The locals all knew the same story, the Salt Witch. Depending on who you asked, she had been a widow, a healer, an outcast, or something far stranger. The details changed from person to person, but one thing remained consistent. Nobody liked stopping near the land where her cabin once stood. Older ranchers would sometimes point toward a lonely stretch of road south of town and quietly say, "Keep driving if your engine dies out there." Then they would refuse to explain further. Naturally, I dismissed all of it. Rural communities collect legends the same way old barns collect dust. Every county has haunted roads. Every town has ghost stories. Most of them disappear once you apply common sense. For nearly 2 years, I patrolled those roads without experiencing anything unusual. Then one autumn, strange reports started coming into dispatch. Drivers claimed they saw lights moving through empty fields after midnight. Ranchers reported hearing voices outside their homes when nobody was there. One elderly farmer called twice in the same week, insisting someone was walking around his property at night, calling livestock by name. We investigated every report, found nothing. Then came the first incident I couldn't explain. Around midnight, I was running a routine patrol along an isolated county road near the old Salt Witch property when dispatch radioed about a possible stranded motorist. A passing truck driver claimed he had seen someone standing beside the road several miles ahead. I drove to the location expecting a breakdown or hitchhiker. Instead, I found an empty stretch of prairie beneath moonlight. No vehicle, no person, nothing. I spent nearly 20 minutes searching both sides of the road before finally parking near an abandoned fence line to complete my report. That's when I noticed how quiet everything had become. No insects, no wind, no distant livestock. Just silence. The kind of silence that feels unnatural because it seems to be waiting for something. Then came the knocking. 3 slow taps against the passenger side window. Calm, evenly spaced. I turned immediately, expecting to see someone standing beside the truck. Nobody was there. The prairie beyond the glass stretched empty beneath pale moonlight. Then 3 more knocks sounded, this time from the rear passenger window. My pulse tightened immediately. The knocks were moving around the truck. I grabbed the spotlight and swept it across the fields outside. Nothing. No person, no animal, no movement. Then my radio crackled softly. Unit 12. The voice belonged to Deputy Harris, my partner. "You still near the Salt Witch Road?" "Yeah," I answered. "Why?" A long pause followed. Then Harris quietly said something that immediately made my stomach turn cold. "Because I'm sitting across from you at the station right now, and dispatch just received a call from your radio." Another pause. "Somebody out there's using your voice." The moment Harris told me somebody had used my voice over the radio, every muscle in my body locked because there was no possible explanation that made sense. My patrol truck sat alone on an empty county road surrounded by miles of prairie. Nobody had approached the vehicle. Nobody had passed me. And yet dispatch had apparently received a transmission from my unit. "What exactly did it say?" I asked. Static crackled softly across the radio before Harris answered. "It just kept repeating your call sign." Another pause. "And then it asked where you were." A cold pressure moved through my chest because whoever or whatever made the transmission already knew where I was. Then 3 more knocks sounded against the truck, this time directly above me on the roof. Slow, deliberate. I grabbed the spotlight and swept it across the prairie again. Nothing. No movement. No footprints near the vehicle. Just endless grass stretching toward distant darkness beneath moonlight. "You okay?" Harris asked. Before I could answer, another voice suddenly broke through the radio. My voice. "Unit 12. The transmission sounded perfect. Same tone, same cadence, same breathing pattern, like hearing a recording of myself played back through the speaker. "Unit 12, the voice repeated. "Do you copy?" Harris immediately started shouting over the channel from the station, "Don't answer that." The duplicate voice remained silent for several seconds. Then softly, almost amused, it spoke again. "Why not?" My pulse hammered painfully. The thing wasn't merely copying words anymore, it was participating in the conversation. Then every radio channel went dead at once. Silence. Complete silence. I checked the controls. Everything appeared functional, yet no signal came through, not even static. The isolation hit me immediately after that. 20 miles from town. Alone. No communication. And something moving around the truck without ever becoming visible. Then I noticed a light in the distance. Small yellow glow, moving slowly across the prairie south of the road. At first I assumed another vehicle, but the light wasn't traveling along any road. It drifted through open fields where no vehicle could possibly drive. Then another light appeared beside it. Then a third. My breathing tightened because the lights weren't random. They looked like lanterns. 3 distant lanterns moving slowly through the prairie toward the old Saltwitch property. The same property locals refused discussing after dark. Every rational instinct told me to remain in the truck, call for backup once communications returned, wait until daylight. Instead, I found myself stepping outside. The moment my boots touched the ground, I noticed the temperature had dropped sharply. Not natural evening cold, the kind of cold that feels isolated to one place. The prairie around me stood unnaturally still. No wind moved through the grass. No insects made noise. The entire landscape seemed to be listening. Then somewhere behind me, from the darkness near the patrol truck, a woman quietly whispered my name. I spun around immediately. Nobody stood there. But on the passenger side window, written across the glass from the outside, were 4 words traced through the thin layer of dust. "Keep driving next time." And as I stared at the message, the lantern lights in the prairie abruptly stopped moving. Like whoever carried them had just noticed me watching. The moment the lantern lights stopped moving in the prairie, a feeling settled into my chest that I still struggled to explain. It wasn't fear. Not yet. It was the certainty that whatever stood out there had been expecting me to notice it. I remained beside the patrol truck staring across the fields while the message on the passenger window seemed to burn itself into my memory. "Keep driving. Next time." The handwriting looked uneven, almost hurried, like someone desperately trying to leave a warning before running out of time. Then one of the lanterns slowly lifted higher into the darkness. Not upward like a floating light, upward because whoever carried it had apparently climbed a small rise in the prairie. And for one brief second, I saw the silhouette holding it. A woman. Long dress, thin frame, motionless posture. Then the lantern disappeared behind another rise, and the silhouette vanished with it. My pulse tightened painfully because the old Saltwitch property sat in exactly that direction. Then the radio suddenly crackled back to life. Unit 12, respond. Harris again. The relief lasted less than 2 seconds, because another voice immediately answered him. My voice. Unit 12, responding. Silence followed. Then Harris spoke again, and for the first time since I had known him, I heard genuine fear in his voice. Which one of you is real? My blood went cold. Before I could respond, the duplicate voice laughed softly through the radio. Not a loud laugh, just enough to sound pleased with itself. Then every channel died again. The prairie around me suddenly felt much larger than before. I climbed back into the truck immediately and started the engine. The headlights illuminated the empty road ahead, while darkness swallowed everything beyond their reach. My plan was simple. Leave, return to town, come back during daylight if necessary. But when I shifted into drive and pulled forward, the road ahead looked wrong. Not dramatically wrong, subtly wrong. The fence line along the eastern side had vanished. The road appeared slightly narrower. Even the telephone poles seemed farther apart than they should have been. I slowed immediately because I had driven this route hundreds of times. I knew every bend, every fence, every abandoned structure, yet suddenly, the landscape felt unfamiliar. Then headlights appeared ahead. Another patrol vehicle. My patrol vehicle. The truck approached slowly from the opposite direction. Same model, same markings, same county insignia. Same unit number. My unit number. My breathing stopped completely. The vehicle rolled toward me until it stopped roughly 50 yards away in the middle of the road. Neither truck moved. Then the driver's door opened. Someone stepped out. Me. Same uniform, same height, same posture. The figure stood beside the vehicle, watching me through the darkness. Then, slowly, it raised one hand toward its shoulder radio. My radio crackled immediately. Unit 12. My own voice filled the cab. You're on the wrong road. A cold wave swept through my entire body because, deep down, I realized something horrifying. I hadn't accidentally found the Saltwitch's land. Something on that road had been waiting for me to arrive. The moment my duplicate stepped out of the patrol truck ahead and spoke through my radio, every survival instinct I had developed over years in law enforcement told me the same thing. Leave. Not investigate, not communicate. Leave. The figure standing beside the identical truck remained motionless in the middle of the road, while moonlight reflected faintly off its uniform badge. My badge. Then it slowly smiled. The smile looked correct at first glance. The longer I stared at it, the more wrong it became. Not because of its shape, because there was no emotion behind it. It felt copied, practiced. The way a person might imitate a smile after seeing one described, but never truly understanding why people smiled. Then the duplicate raised the radio again. You're late. My pulse hammered painfully. The phrase sounded familiar somehow. Not from my life, from somewhere older. Somewhere attached to that road. Then movement appeared in the fields on both sides of the highway. Lanterns. Dozens of them. One after another lighting up across the prairie until the darkness seemed filled with distant yellow glows stretching toward the horizon. Some moved slowly, some remained perfectly still. And standing beside many of them were silhouettes. Men, women, children. Motionless figures watching the road. Watching me. My breathing became shallow because none of them appeared threatening. They looked trapped. Then the radio crackled again. Harris's voice finally broke through the interference. Unit 12, answer me right now. Relief hit me immediately. Harris, listen carefully. Before I could finish, another transmission cut across mine. My voice. Harris, don't send anyone. Then my duplicate laughed softly. The radio went silent. At the same moment, every lantern in the prairie went out. Darkness swallowed the landscape completely. The duplicate patrol vehicle ahead vanished too. 1 second, it sat there in the road. The next, it was gone. No headlights, no engine noise, nothing. Only empty highway beneath moonlight. My chest tightened painfully because I knew what came next before it happened. The knocking. 3 slow taps against the passenger window. Then 3 against the rear window. Then 3 directly above me on the roof. The sound moved around the truck with deliberate patience. Not trying to scare me. Trying to get my attention. Then a woman's voice whispered from somewhere outside the vehicle. Keep driving. The exact words written on the window earlier. I looked toward the passenger side mirror. For one horrifying second, I saw a woman standing beside the truck. Thin face, long dark dress, weathered features. She looked exhausted rather than frightening. And behind her stood dozens of other figures stretching across the prairie. The lantern bearers. Then she looked directly into the mirror and quietly said something that made my blood run cold. It learns people. The mirror immediately reflected empty prairie again. Nobody stood there. Then the engine died. Complete silence settled over the road. And somewhere beyond the darkness, using my exact voice, something softly called my name. The moment the engine died, and something in the darkness called my name using my own voice, I understood exactly why the older ranchers refused stopping near the Saltwitch Road after dark. The danger wasn't seeing something. The danger was staying long enough for it to learn you. Complete silence surrounded the truck. No wind, no insects, no distant cattle, nothing. Then my voice came again from somewhere beyond the headlights. Deputy. Calm, familiar. Exactly the way I would call to someone during a routine stop. My pulse hammered painfully while I gripped the steering wheel and stared into the darkness ahead. Every instinct told me not to answer. Then another voice joined it. Harris. Where are you? The imitation sounded perfect. Then dispatch. Then my father. Then an old friend from years earlier. One after another, the voices drifted across the prairie beyond the truck, while darkness pressed against the windows from every direction. The thing outside wasn't choosing random voices. It was choosing people I trusted. Then came 3 slow knocks on the driver's side window. I turned immediately. A figure stood beside the truck. Me. Same uniform, same face, same expression. The duplicate stared through the glass while moonlight reflected faintly across its features. Then it smiled. Not the copied smile from before. This one looked better, more natural. It was improving. Learning. The realization hit me harder than fear because suddenly I understood what the woman in the mirror meant. It learns people. Every conversation, every voice, every behavior, the thing attached to that road had been studying travelers for generations. Then the duplicate raised one finger and pointed toward the passenger seat beside me. I looked instinctively. Written across the dusty dashboard were fresh words. It only takes one stop. My chest tightened painfully because I hadn't written them. Nobody could have written them without entering the vehicle. Then the engine suddenly started by itself. The dashboard lights flickered back to life. The duplicate outside vanished instantly. Gone. I didn't hesitate. I shifted into drive and accelerated down the highway as fast as conditions allowed. The patrol truck bounced over rough pavement while the darkness behind me swallowed the stretch of road where everything happened. For nearly 10 miles, nothing unusual occurred. Then the radio crackled. Harris. Real Harris. Unit 12, where the hell have you been? The relief nearly made me laugh. Long story, I answered. Silence followed for several seconds. Then Harris quietly said something that made my blood run cold one final time. We've been trying to reach you for 6 hours. I looked at the dashboard clock immediately. My stomach dropped. According to the clock, only 40 minutes had passed since I stopped near the old property. According to dispatch logs, 6 hours had disappeared. Nobody ever explained where they went. I returned to the Salt Witch Road once during daylight a few weeks later. The prairie looked completely normal. No lanterns, no figures, no strange sounds. But I did find something. Near the location where my truck had stopped stood the remains of an old foundation hidden beneath grass and weeds, the last traces of a long-forgotten cabin. And scattered around the foundation were dozens of rusted lantern frames buried in the earth. Far too many for a single family. As though people had been gathering there for a very long time. I transferred counties the following year. Officially, it was for career reasons. Unofficially, I never wanted to patrol that road again. Even now, years later, I still avoid isolated highways whenever possible, especially empty roads cutting through open prairie after midnight. Because some places aren't haunted by ghosts. Some places are haunted by something older, something patient, something that sits beside forgotten roads, listening to travelers for generations until it learns enough to become them. And sometimes when I wake suddenly in the middle of the night, I swear I hear my patrol radio crackle softly from the darkness. Then my own voice calmly asks the same question from somewhere just beyond hearing. Where are you? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to True Haunting Log so you never miss the next encounter. And if you've ever driven a road that felt wrong after dark, send your story to truehauntinglog@gmail.com. And tell us in the comments, what other ghost topic do you want to hear real stories about next?